My beloved child. Stop scrolling. Pause here for a moment. Something is waiting for you. What you are about to hear was meant to find you, not by accident, not by chance, but in the exact moment your heart was ready to receive it. Do not rush past these words. There is a reason your eyes have settled here. There is a reason your spirit feels strangely restless. Something has already begun moving behind the scenes, even if you cannot yet see it. Heaven has been quietly arranging moments that your human eyes could never predict. What feels ordinary today will soon become the memory that changed everything. Listen carefully. Someone has made a decision. A decision they never imagined they would make. A decision that has kept them awake during silent nights when no one else knew the battle taking place inside their heart. You have wondered why certain doors closed. You questioned why conversations suddenly ended. You asked why delays seemed to multiply whenever hope appeared within reach. You even wondered whether heaven had forgotten the promises whispered into your soul. But I tell you now, nothing was forgotten. Nothing was abandoned. Nothing was wasted. Every delay was protecting a blessing that could not arrive before its appointed season. Stop scrolling. Pause here again. Something is waiting for you. What you are about to hear was meant to find you. Many people around you only see the chapters you have survived. They have no idea about the pages that are still being written. They measure your future using yesterday's disappointments, but heaven never writes tomorrow using yesterday's failures. While you were learning how to trust through silence, another heart was learning how to recognize your worth. While you cried prayers that nobody heard, another soul was discovering that no success, no achievement, and no temporary happiness could silence the feeling that someone important was still missing. They could not explain it. They tried to ignore it. They convinced themselves it would disappear with time. Yet every road they traveled somehow circled back to the same invisible question. Why does my heart keep returning to someone I cannot forget? This was never coincidence. This was preparation. Long before either of you understood the story, heaven had already begun weaving threads together that neither distance nor fear could permanently separate. There were moments when you almost gave up believing love could still surprise you. You smiled while carrying hidden disappointments. You encouraged others while secretly wondering when your own breakthrough would finally arrive. I saw every silent tear. I counted every lonely night. I heard every whispered prayer that never left your lips because you believed no one was listening. I was listening. Even when you felt surrounded by silence, heaven was not silent. It was working. Stop scrolling. Something is waiting for you. Pause for one more moment. What you are about to hear was meant to find you. There is a ring. Not simply a piece of gold. Not merely a symbol admired by human eyes. It represents a promise that first existed in the spiritual realm before it could ever exist in human hands. You have imagined many futures. Some were beautiful. Some frightened you. Some never happened. But the future now approaching has been quietly growing through circumstances that looked completely unrelated. Every unexpected meeting. Every missed opportunity. Every painful goodbye. Every lesson that strengthened your heart instead of breaking it forever. None of it stood alone. Each moment became another stone placed upon a path leading toward an appointment that cannot remain hidden forever. The person whose heart has been changing does not yet understand the full depth of what is happening inside them. At first they believed they were simply remembering you. Then they believed they were merely curious. Soon curiosity became concern. Concern became admiration. Admiration became longing. Longing quietly became certainty. Now they have reached a place where running away no longer feels easier than facing the truth. The truth keeps finding them. Your kindness returns to their memory without invitation. Your voice echoes through ordinary moments. Small reminders appear everywhere they look. Songs. Places. Unexpected conversations. Even strangers unknowingly speak words that awaken thoughts of you. They tell themselves it is coincidence. But coincidence cannot explain why the feeling only grows stronger. Heaven has ways of reaching hearts without forcing them. Love born from freedom carries greater strength than love created through pressure. That is why everything has unfolded slowly. That is why answers seem delayed. That is why your patience has been stretched beyond what you believed possible. Because lasting promises require prepared hearts. If blessings arrive before character is ready, they often become burdens instead of miracles. You wondered why the timing never matched your expectations. Now you are beginning to stand at the edge of understanding. The season is changing. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Quietly. Steadily. Irreversibly. Yet there is something you still do not know. Someone close to this person recently noticed the change before they themselves admitted it aloud. A simple question was asked. One innocent conversation opened a door they had spent months trying to keep locked. Their answer surprised even them. The words escaped before fear could stop them. In that unexpected moment, a hidden truth finally stepped into the light. And the response they received. It was nothing like they expected. That response has already begun setting events into motion that neither of you can yet see. This is only the beginning. The greatest revelation has not yet been spoken. The silence that followed those unexpected words felt heavier than either of them had imagined. For a long moment, neither person spoke. The air itself seemed to hold its breath, as though the world had paused to witness a truth that had remained hidden for far too long. Finally, the listener smiled. Not with surprise alone, but with the quiet recognition that comes when someone has been waiting for another to admit what their heart already suspected. "So that's why you've been different," they whispered. The confession had not solved every question, but it had broken the walls that fear had spent so long building. Memories that had once been pushed aside now returned with startling clarity. Forgotten conversations, lingering glances, unfinished goodbyes, and the strange feeling that every attempt to move on had somehow led back to the same person. It was no longer possible to pretend those moments meant nothing. The realization settled gently but powerfully. Love had not disappeared. It had simply been hidden beneath uncertainty. The friend leaned forward and asked a question that echoed through the room. "If your heart already knows the answer, then what are you waiting for?" No reply came immediately. Not because there wasn't an answer. Because the answer required courage. Outside, the evening sky slowly darkened, and the first stars appeared one by one. It felt almost symbolic, as if every light in the distance reminded them that hope often arrives quietly rather than all at once. A small velvet box rested inside a drawer that had remained unopened for weeks. It had never been shown to anyone. Every time it was picked up, doubt whispered that the timing wasn't right. Every time it was placed back, another part of the heart wondered how much longer fear should be allowed to decide the future. That question became impossible to ignore. The conversation ended, but its impact did not. Long after the room had emptied, those words continued echoing. What are you waiting for? Meanwhile, miles away, another life continued as though nothing extraordinary was happening. Yet small moments began to feel different. A familiar song played unexpectedly. A memory returned without warning. A feeling of anticipation appeared for no obvious reason. It was impossible to explain, but something seemed to be drawing two separate journeys toward the same destination. Neither person could yet see the whole picture. Neither knew how close they were to a moment capable of changing everything. The unopened box would not remain hidden forever. The unspoken words would not remain silent forever. And the path that had seemed so uncertain was quietly leading toward a meeting neither of them would ever forget. But before that meeting could happen, one final obstacle still stood in the way. It was not distance. It was not another person. It was fear. The last barrier that had to be faced before the future waiting beyond it could finally begin. And just as that final decision approached, something completely unexpected happened. The unexpected moment arrived without warning. It was not announced by thunder or extraordinary signs. Instead, it came disguised as an ordinary day, one that began like countless others. Yet beneath its quiet surface, everything was different. A single decision changed the direction of the story. For weeks, hesitation had been stronger than hope. Every possible outcome had been imagined. Every fear had been rehearsed. Every excuse had been repeated until it no longer sounded convincing. Then came a moment of complete stillness. There was nowhere left to hide from the truth. If I remain silent now, the voice whispered to itself, I may spend the rest of my life wondering what could have been. Those words carried more weight than anything spoken before. The small velvet box was lifted once again. This time, it was not placed back inside the drawer. The fingers holding it trembled, not because love was uncertain, but because love always asks for courage before it asks for celebration. Across town, completely unaware of this decision, another heart sensed that something was changing. It was impossible to explain. The day felt unusually meaningful. Ordinary conversations seemed distant. Time itself appeared to slow, as though every passing minute was quietly leading toward an unseen appointment. There was no logical reason for the growing anticipation. Yet it remained. Some feelings arrive before explanations do. Hours passed. One step became another. A familiar road appeared. Places once filled with old memories suddenly looked different, as though they had been patiently waiting for this very chapter to begin. Every memory that once brought sadness now carried a new possibility. Not because the past had changed. Because the future finally had. Still, one final question echoed louder than every other thought. What if the answer is no? Fear has a remarkable way of making impossible stories sound believable. It speaks in certainty while offering nothing but doubt. Yet hope quietly answered with a single reminder. You will never discover tomorrow if you allow yesterday to make every decision. That reminder was enough. The journey continued. At the same time, another unexpected conversation unfolded elsewhere. Someone close noticed the unusual peace that had begun replacing old disappointment. "You've been smiling more lately," they observed. The response came with gentle honesty. "I don't know why, but it feels like something beautiful is getting closer." Neither of them realized how accurate those words truly were. Destiny often walks silently before it knocks. The evening sun slowly disappeared beyond the horizon, painting the sky with warm shades of gold and crimson. It looked like the ending of one season and the beginning of another. A deep breath. One final look at the ring. One quiet prayer for courage. Then, a phone vibrated unexpectedly. The name appearing on the screen was the very last one expected. For several long seconds, no one moved. Every heartbeat seemed louder than the ringing itself. Answering that call could change everything. Ignoring it could leave an entire future waiting in silence. The ringing stopped. Silence returned. Then, almost immediately, a message appeared. Only 7 simple words. "I think it's finally time we talked." Those words changed everything. But what happened after that message was sent would become the moment neither of them could have imagined. The moment that would decide whether two separate paths finally became one. And that story begins next. The message remained on the screen. "I think it's finally time we talked." No dramatic music filled the air. No crowd witnessed the moment. There was only a racing heartbeat and the quiet realization that some moments divide life into 2 chapters, everything before them and everything after. For several minutes, no reply was sent. Not because there were no words. Because every possible response carried the weight of hope. On the other side, the sender waited in complete silence. The confidence that had finally overcome months of hesitation was beginning to collide with uncertainty once again. What if I waited too long? The question echoed through every passing second. Then, at last, the screen lit up. A single reply appeared. "I've been waiting for this conversation." Everything changed in that instant. The distance that had once seemed impossible suddenly felt smaller. Every misunderstanding that had built walls between them no longer appeared permanent. The future, which had once looked hidden behind unanswered questions, slowly began revealing a new path. Their conversation lasted for hours. They did not begin with grand promises. They began with honesty. They admitted the fears they had hidden. They spoke about the moments they almost walked away. They confessed how pride had often spoken louder than love. With every sentence, another layer of misunderstanding disappeared. Neither of them was pretending to be perfect anymore. They were simply choosing truth. Sometimes that is where the strongest love begins. As the night grew quieter, one unexpected confession filled the silence. "There wasn't a single day when I completely forgot you." The words were simple. Yet they carried the weight of countless unspoken emotions. A smile appeared. Not because every problem had vanished, but because hope had returned. Outside, the sky was filled with stars. It seemed as though the universe itself had paused to witness two hearts choosing courage over fear. The small velvet box was no longer hidden. It rested on the table, untouched, yet full of possibility. Its meaning had grown far beyond a piece of jewelry. It represented commitment. Forgiveness. A willingness to build a future instead of remaining trapped in the past. Still, one final step remained. Love could no longer stay inside conversations. It had to become action. "We should meet," one message read. The reply came almost immediately. Yes. Just one word. Yet it carried enough hope to erase months of uncertainty. Plans were made. A place was chosen. A day was set. Neither of them knew that someone else had quietly noticed the change. A close friend smiled after hearing the news. "I've never seen you this certain before," they said. The answer came without hesitation. "Because for the first time, I'm no longer running from what my heart already knows." The days leading to the meeting felt unusually long. Every sunrise brought excitement. Every sunset brought anticipation. Questions still remained. Would the meeting feel the same in person? Would the courage that existed through messages remain strong face to face? Would everything they had hoped for finally become real? Only time could answer. When the morning finally arrived, both lives were moving toward the same destination. Neither knew that before the day ended, a surprise awaited. One that neither had planned, one that would test whether the promises they had begun making were strong enough to withstand an unexpected turn. As they took their first steps toward that long-awaited meeting, neither realized that the next few moments would become the story they would remember for the rest of their lives.